march we onward into section 10.2. Hopefully you have done the discussion, and if you did the discussion, then you took two perpendicular lines and you said, all right, I can go across L and I can go across M, and I'm pretty sure I know what the relationship is with respect to that point where the two lines are perpendicular. Oh, look, it looks like we went halfway around, and I'm pretty sure that you can prove that and that you will do so in the discussion if you haven't already. Two perpendicular lines is how we arrive at a half turn. Half-turn is a composition of two reflections across perpendicular lines. The Euclidean understanding is fine here. There are some things you should know about half-turns. If P is any point other than the intersection of the two perpendicular lines, then O is the midpoint of the segment with endpoints P and half-turn of P. This almost makes sense. O is definitely, this is the half-turn centered at 0 of P. O is definitely the midpoint of that segment. You can prove that. Not terribly difficult to prove that. But this is also an interesting idea. If N and S are any two lines perpendicular at O, then they do the same thing that L and M did. There is nothing special about lines L and M. We could have chosen these two perpendicular lines. We could have chosen these two perpendicular lines. It mattereth not. They could be the black lines, the green lines, the red lines. It does not matter. Any two perpendicular lines at O, any two lines that are perpendicular at O, do a half turn the same way that L and M do. Why do we need that? Because there are some theorems down the road where we're going to swap out two perpendicular lines for two other perpendicular lines because we want to do the same thing in a different way. So ominous foreboding, foreshadowing, all of that. Then you did this thing where you were like, I know what's going on here. I'm going to reflect over L. I'm going to reflect over M. Here's P double prime. There's P prime. And you figured out that whatever this angle is, right? Whatever this angle is, there's P double prime. Whatever this angle is, it's twice as big as what that angle is. You figured that out in the discussion, and that is a rotation. It's a composition of two reflections across intersecting lines. Oh, so sorry, too far. In this case, there's the point where the lines intersect, L and M. Angle PO P double prime, angle PO P double prime is the angle of rotation, and the angle of rotation is twice as big as the acute angle between the lines. That's how this goes. If P is any point other than O, then the measure of PO P double prime is the angle of rotation. Does not matter which point we pick in the plane, and then we go over L and over M. Does not matter which point in the plane we pick, we get the angle of rotation every time. But we also note, and we use this later, you give me any other line containing O, any other line containing O, this line. Then there exist lines S and T so that if you reflect in this order or you reflect in this order, you can do the same thing with different lines. Well, too far. Well, that makes sense. Whatever angle L and M are apart, you can jerry-rig an S on this side and a T on that side that do the same thing passing through O. Whatever this angle is, by protractor postulate, you can construct that angle here, you can construct that angle here. So nothing terribly difficult about the rotation theorem, but the rotation theorem gives us this tool that we're going to use later in our study to swap out two intersecting lines with two other intersecting lines that do the same thing. Okay, one more, but that's another video.